I always thought I knew what love was. Or at least, I believed that the way I lived with Anna was love in its truest, most stable form. We had been together for 8 years, married for 5. Our relationship had matured from wild nights of laughter, careless trips across Europe, to quiet evenings in front of the television, sipping tea while she scrolled through her phone, and I half-watched some series I wasn't even interested in. It wasn't that I was unhappy. I used to tell myself that happiness was about comfort, about knowing someone so well that silence didn't feel empty. And for a long time, I believed it. But comfort has a darker side too. Comfort becomes routine, routine becomes stagnation, and somewhere along that road, passion suffocates. We stopped touching each other the way we used to. Our kisses turned into pecks, our hugs into quick gestures before heading off to work. And sex became an occasion rather than a desire. Maybe once every couple of weeks, and even then it felt like a chore, something to check off the list like paying the bills or cleaning the kitchen. I remember one night, lying awake next to Anna, staring at the ceiling, listening to her steady breathing. I couldn't help but wonder when exactly things had shifted. She was still beautiful, still the woman I had fallen for, but I couldn't remember the last time I looked at her and felt that fire in my stomach. And worse, I couldn't remember the last time she had looked at me that way either. I'm not trying to excuse what I did later, but I want to be honest. Affairs don't just fall out of the sky. They grow in the cracks we ignore, in the spaces between two people who stop truly seeing each other. I was 34 when it happened. I worked as a project manager in a mid-sized architecture firm. My job wasn't glamorous, but it gave me purpose. Deadlines, clients, meetings, I liked the order of it. Anna worked as a teacher at a private high school, and she was good at her job. Maybe too good, in fact. She poured so much of herself into her students, her lesson plans, her endless stack of papers to grade, that by the time she came home, there was little left for me. I never blamed her outright, but I felt it. That emptiness, that invisibility. And then came Julia. She wasn't supposed to mean anything to me. She was a new hire at the firm, an interior designer with sharp ideas and a sharp tongue. From the first day, she stood out. Not just because she was attractive, though she was tall, with dark hair that framed her face in waves, eyes that always seemed to carry a private joke. What struck me most was her energy. She was alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. Our first real conversation was over something mundane, a delayed shipment of materials that threatened to derail a project. She stormed into my office, annoyed but articulate, gesturing with her hands as she explained the situation. I listened, half distracted at first, but then I caught myself actually enjoying the sound of her voice, the way she pushed back at me, challenging my decisions without hesitation. Most people in the office tended to tread carefully around me, respecting my seniority. Julia didn't care. She spoke to me like an equal, and I found myself respecting her for it. Over the next weeks, we ended up working closely on several projects. Long hours at the office meant long conversations, some about work, others about life. She had recently gone through a breakup. She told me one night as we stayed late finishing a presentation. Her ex-boyfriend had cheated on her, and the bitterness in her laugh when she said it told me the wound was still fresh. I remember feeling protective in that moment, though I had no right to. What started as professional camaraderie slowly shifted into something else. A shared coffee break turned into private jokes. Emails about deadlines became sprinkled with humor. Little notes meant only for each other. And then there were the glances, the kind you catch across a meeting room, quick and fleeting but charged with something unspoken. First, I brushed it off. I told myself it was harmless, that I was just flattered by the attention of a younger, vibrant woman. Everyone likes to feel desired, don't they? Especially when at home, the person you've promised your life to barely notices when you change your haircut or wear a new shirt. But deep down, I knew it was more than flattery. Julia made me feel alive again. She made me remember what it was like to be wanted. And once that door was cracked open, it was only a matter of time before it swung wide. The night it all shifted was a Friday. We had just finished presenting a major project to a client, and the entire team went out for drinks to celebrate. Anna stayed home. She hated these work gatherings, always claiming she was too tired after a week of teaching. So there I was, surrounded by my colleagues, half listening to their chatter while my eyes kept drifting to Julia. She was wearing a simple black dress, nothing extravagant, but on her it looked devastating. We sat across from each other, and the more the alcohol flowed, the looser the conversation became. At some point, she leaned in close to tell me a story, her hand brushing my arm, and I felt the heat of her skin linger long after. It was nothing technically, an accident maybe, but the look in her eyes told me she knew exactly what she was doing. By the end of the night, when the others had already left, Julia and I found ourselves outside, waiting for our rides. It was late, the street quiet, the air heavy with the smell of rain. We stood close, too close. She laughed at something I said, then suddenly grew quiet, her gaze dropping to my lips. I should have stepped back. I should have remembered Anna, sleeping peacefully at home, trusting me. But instead, I let the silence stretch until Julia closed the distance and kissed me. It was quick, barely more than a brush of lips, but it was enough. Enough to ignite everything I had been burying inside. Enough to make me realize that the line had already been crossed, whether I admitted it or not. That night, lying in bed next to my wife, I felt the weight of the betrayal. I hadn't told Julia to stop. I hadn't told her it was wrong. And though no one else knew, I knew. A part of me felt sick with guilt. Another part, the darker part, felt exhilarated. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't just existing. I was alive. The Monday after that kiss was hell. I walked into the office determined to pretend nothing had happened, to bury the memory deep enough that it would never surface again. But pretending is harder than it sounds when your body betrays you. Every time Julia passed my desk, every time her perfume drifted through the air, I felt my chest tighten. She didn't act differently, not at first. She smiled the same, joked the same, spoke to me as if we were simply colleagues. But there was an undercurrent now, invisible to everyone else but palpable to me. It was in the way her eyes lingered a second too long when we spoke. It was in the silence that hung in the air when the two of us were alone in a room. I tried to convince myself it was harmless. I told myself that as long as I didn't act on it again, I wasn't really doing anything wrong. But every rationalization crumbled at night, when I lay in bed beside Anna, staring at the ceiling, remembering the press of Julia's lips on mine. Anna noticed something was off. She asked me one evening if I was stressed about work. I nodded, grateful for the excuse. She rubbed my shoulders briefly before turning back to her papers, and I hated myself for realizing how little her touch stirred in me compared to Julia's fleeting brush of a hand. The real turning point came 2 weeks later. Julia and I were staying late at the office again, working on revisions for a demanding client. The building was nearly empty, the hum of the air conditioning filling the silence between us. She sat across from me, her hair falling in loose waves around her face as she focused on her laptop. I found myself staring, tracing the curve of her cheek, the way her lips pursed in concentration. She looked up suddenly, catching me. Instead of embarrassment, there was a flicker of something else in her eyes. An acknowledgement, a challenge. "You're staring," she said softly, her lips curving into a half-smile. I swallowed. "Sorry, I was thinking." "About work?" she asked, tilting her head. I could have lied. I should have lied. But the truth slipped out before I could stop it. "No, not about work." The silence stretched, heavy, electric. Then she closed her laptop with a soft click and leaned back in her chair, her gaze fixed on me. "You know we shouldn't," she said finally, her voice low, almost a whisper. "I know," I replied. My throat was dry. And then, as if some invisible force pulled us together, I stood and walked around the desk. She rose to meet me, and suddenly we were close, too close. I could smell her perfume, feel the warmth radiating from her skin. For a moment, I hesitated. I thought of Anna, of our vows, of the life we had built together. But then Julia's hand brushed against mine, deliberate this time, and the dam inside me broke. We kissed. Not the brief, tentative kiss of that night outside the bar, but something deeper, hungrier. Her fingers tangled in my hair, My hands gripped her waist, and all the guilt, all the hesitation, drowned beneath the rush of desire. We didn't sleep together that night. Not yet. But in many ways that made it worse. Because it meant the tension only grew stronger, feeding on restraint, building into something unbearable. The next days blurred together, a mixture of stolen moments and careful avoidance. We found excuses to be alone. Coffee breaks that lasted longer than they should. Urgent meetings that were little more than an opportunity to talk without prying eyes. Every touch, every shared glance was a secret. And secrets, I was learning, are intoxicating. At home, things with Anna grew strained. She asked me one night why I seemed distant, why I was always working late. I told her the truth in a way. Yes, I was working late, but not for the reasons she imagined. She looked at me with tired eyes, searching for reassurance. I kissed her forehead and told her not to worry. She smiled faintly, but I could see the doubt behind her eyes. I hated myself for lying, yet at the same time I craved the thrill of it, the double life. With Anna, I was the devoted husband, steady and reliable. With Julia, I was someone else entirely, passionate, reckless, alive. It was a Friday night when the inevitable finally happened. We had stayed late again, alone in the office. The city lights glittered through the windows, casting shadows across the floor. Julia stood by the window, her arms crossed as she gazed out at the skyline. "It's beautiful," she said softly. I walked over to stand beside her. "Yeah, it is." She turned to look at me then, her expression unreadable. "What are we doing, really?" The question hung in the air. I didn't know how to answer. I didn't want to answer, so instead I kissed her. And this time we didn't stop. We ended up in the small lounge near the back of the office, the one no one ever used. Clothes half undone, breaths ragged, we gave in completely. Every touch was fire. Every kiss a release of weeks of suppressed longing. When it was over, we sat together in silence, our bodies still pressed close, the weight of what we had done settling heavily around us. Julia was the first to speak. "We crossed the line." "I know," I whispered. "We can't go back." And she was right. There was no going back. Not to the way things had been with Anna. Not to the harmless flirtation Julia and I once pretended it was. We had stepped into forbidden territory, and no matter how much I told myself I could control it, I knew in my heart that control was already lost. That night, when I returned home, Anna was asleep on the couch, a blanket draped over her. I stood there for a long time, watching her chest rise and fall, guilt clawing at my insides. I wanted to wake her, to confess everything, to beg for forgiveness. But instead, I carried her to bed, tucked her in gently, and lay down beside her, staring into the darkness. I told myself it was just once, that it didn't have to mean anything, that I could keep the two worlds separate. But I was lying to myself, because already I knew I wanted more. If guilt was supposed to stop me, it didn't. Maybe in the beginning I thought it would, like some natural barrier that, once broken, would shock me back into my senses. But the truth is, guilt only made the passion sharper. It was like playing with fire. The danger itself became part of the thrill. Julia and I slipped into a rhythm. It wasn't planned, it wasn't discussed, but it happened all the same. A stolen hour after work. A quick meeting at a hotel under the pretense of a business trip. Sometimes it was her apartment, sometimes mine when Anna was away visiting her sister. Every time we told ourselves it was the last. Every time we broke that promise. She was intoxicating. Julia had this way of making me feel like the center of her world whenever we were together. Her laughter, her sharp wit, the way her body fit against mine. It was everything I had been missing without even realizing it. But it wasn't just physical. She listened to me. She asked about my dreams, my frustrations, my fears. With Anna, conversations had become shallow. What to buy at the grocery store, whose turn it was to do laundry, which of her students were causing trouble. With Julia, I felt like I mattered again. But of course, nothing stays hidden forever. The first crack came from Anna. One night, she looked at me across the dinner table and said, "You're different lately." I froze, Mid-bite. Different how? She shrugged, but her eyes didn't leave mine. Distant. Distracted. You barely talk to me anymore. I forced a smile, tried to deflect. Work's just been crazy. You know how clients can be. She nodded, but I could see the doubt lingering in her eyes. She wasn't the type to accuse without proof, but she was intuitive. Too intuitive. That night, I lay awake, watching her sleep, the guilt gnawing at me. I promised myself I'd stop. I'd end things with Julia before it got worse. But the next day, Julia walked into my office with that smile. The one that made my heart race, and I knew I couldn't. The affair consumed me. Every text, every hidden call, every excuse to stay late at work. It became a second life, one I guarded fiercely from Anna. I became good at lying, frighteningly good. I learned to clear my messages, to memorize alibis, to control my expressions when Anna asked about my day. I hated myself for it, but the rush of seeing Julia, of feeling her lips against mine, made the lies worth it. Still, passion is never simple. With intimacy comes emotion, and with emotion comes jealousy. One night, as we lay tangled in sheets at her apartment, Julia asked me, "Do you love her?" The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I didn't answer right away. "Anna," I finally said, "she's my wife. Of course I care about her." "That's not what I asked," Julia pressed. Her eyes were sharp, searching. I hesitated. I don't know anymore." She looked away, biting her lip. "You're with me, but you still go home to her. You say you're unhappy, but you stay. What does that make me?" "Your escape." Her words cut deeper than I expected. I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "You're more than that," I said, my voice rough. "You mean more to me than I can explain." "Then leave her," Julia said bluntly. The room went silent. I couldn't answer because the truth was, I wasn't ready to. Anna hadn't done anything to deserve this. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't unfaithful. She wasn't unloving. She was just tired. Our love had settled into routine, and I had let it die quietly. The idea of leaving her, of shattering the life we had built, terrified me. Julia saw the hesitation in my eyes, and it hurt her. "You'll never leave her," she said bitterly. "I'm just fooling myself." That night was the first time she asked me to go, and I did. But by the next day, we were back together again, as if the fight had never happened. That's how it was with us. Passion and conflict, fire and water, constantly clashing but never extinguished. At home, Anna grew more suspicious. She started asking who I was texting so late at night, why I smelled of perfume that wasn't hers, why I seemed so eager to work overtime. I had answers ready, plausible, rehearsed, but I could feel her pulling away. One evening, as I was leaving the house, she asked, "Are you seeing someone else?" The words hit me like a punch. For a moment, I almost confessed. The guilt was so heavy on my chest that I thought it would crush me. But instead, I lied. "No," I said firmly. "Of course not." She looked at me for a long time, her eyes searching mine, then simply nodded. But I knew she didn't believe me. That night, as I lay in Julia's arms, I couldn't shake Anna's voice from my head. The betrayal was no longer just a secret. It was a living thing, a shadow in every corner of my life. And yet I couldn't stop. Because every time I thought of ending it, every time I told myself I had to choose, Julia would look at me with those eyes that burned straight into my soul, and I knew I was already too far gone. Living two lives is like juggling knives. You can keep it up for a while, but eventually something slips. For me, that moment came slowly, piece by piece, like glass fracturing under pressure. At first, it was the small things. Anna began to notice my phone was always face down on the table, or that I stepped outside to take calls. She asked questions, subtle at first, then sharper. "Who was that? Why are you home so late again?" I had answers prepared, rehearsed lies that slipped off my tongue with alarming ease. But every lie widened the distance between us. Julia, on the other hand, was growing restless. She didn't want to be the other woman, not forever. "I'm tired of hiding," she told me one night as we lay tangled together. Her voice was softer than her words, but her eyes were fierce. I want more than hotel rooms and secret texts. I want you, all of you. I kissed her, tried to reassure her, but she pushed me back. Don't just tell me you love me. Prove it. Her demand echoed in my head for days. Did I love her? The answer was complicated. I loved how she made me feel. Alive, desired, reckless. But love is more than desire, isn't it? Or maybe I was just afraid to admit the truth. That what I had with Anna was safety, while what I had with Julia was fire. And fire, if you feed it, always spreads. It wasn't long before the two worlds began to bleed into each other. One Saturday, Anna suggested we spend the evening together. Just the two of us. She even booked a dinner reservation at a restaurant we hadn't visited in years. For a moment I felt hope. Maybe this was our chance to fix things. Maybe if I focused on her, if I let Julia go, I could salvage our marriage. But that afternoon, Julia called. "Come over," she said, her voice husky, edged with something like desperation. "I need you." I should have said no. Instead, I went. I told Anna I had to stop by the office to handle a last-minute crisis. And just like that, I broke the fragile thread she had been trying to spin between us. By the time I got home that night, Anna was already in bed, her untouched makeup still on her face, her hair pinned back neatly as if she had been waiting for me and gave up. The sight made my stomach twist. I kissed her forehead, but she didn't stir, or maybe she pretended not to. The following week, the tension exploded. It was a Thursday evening when Anna confronted me. I had just walked through the door, loosening my tie, when she appeared in the hallway, arms crossed. "Who is she?" she asked flatly. My heart stopped. "What? Don't play dumb." Her eyes were cold, unblinking. "There's someone else. I can feel it. Just tell me the truth." The room spun around me. My mind raced for excuses, denials, but something in her expression told me it was useless. She didn't have proof, at least not yet, but she had intuition, and it was sharper than evidence. I opened my mouth, closed it again. Finally, I whispered, "Anna." She shook her head, her voice breaking. "Don't. Just don't." Then she turned and walked away, leaving me standing there in the silence of our home, drowning in shame. That night, Julia texted me, "I miss you. Come over." I stared at the message, torn between two worlds, two lives. And I went, because by then I was addicted. But passion doesn't erase reality. It magnifies it. Julia wanted more, and the more I gave her, the more she demanded. She grew jealous whenever I canceled on her, suspicious whenever I didn't answer immediately. "Are you with her right now?" she asked once, her tone sharp as a blade. "She's my wife," I said, exasperated. "Of course I'm with her sometimes." "Sometimes." Julia's laugh was bitter. "Do you even hear yourself? I'm sharing you like some secret I'm ashamed of." Her words stung because they were true, but I couldn't give her what she wanted, not yet. The thought of tearing my life apart, my home, my marriage, everything I had built with Anna, was terrifying. And yet, every time Julia pulled away, every time she threatened to end things, panic consumed me.
I begged, I promised, I lied.
Not just to Anna anymore, but to Julia too. The triangle had become a prison, each side closing in, sharper, more dangerous. And deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before it shattered completely. It happened on a rainy evening, the kind of night when the world feels heavy and suffocating. I was at Julia's apartment, stretched out on her couch, the sound of raindrops against the window muffled by the pounding of my own heart. We had just finished arguing again. She wanted me to tell Anna, to end it once and for all. I kept stalling, promising I just needed more time. "You've been saying that for months?" Julia snapped, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Do you even realize what this is doing to me? To us?" I rubbed my face with my hands, exhausted. "I know. I can't blow up my life overnight. It's not that simple." Her eyes were cold.
"No."
"It's that you're a coward." The words cut deeper than she knew. Before I could answer, My phone buzzed on the coffee table. I reached for it, thinking it was a message from work. But it was Anna. "We need to talk." "I know." My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. Julia leaned forward, reading the screen before I could hide it. "She knows," she whispered. I stood up, pacing. My mind spun with panic, 1,000 scenarios flashing through my head. How much did Anna know? What had she seen? What would I say? "Go home," Julia said quietly. I looked at her, surprised. "This is it," she continued. "You can't keep running between us anymore. You need to face her. Decide who you really want, or you'll lose both of us." Her voice trembled, but her eyes stayed firm, and I knew she was right. The drive home felt endless. Rain hammered against the windshield, the wipers barely keeping up. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly they ached. When I finally pulled into the driveway, Anna's car was there, lights still on inside the house. I walked in to find her sitting at the dining table, a glass of wine in front of her. She didn't look up when I entered. "Anna," I began, my voice cracking. "Don't," she said sharply, her eyes fixed on the glass. "Don't bother lying anymore. I saw the messages." My chest tightened. "How?" "Your laptop," she said, her voice steady but flat. "You must have forgotten to log out one night. I wasn't even looking for anything. But there they were. Dozens of them. Her name, her words. Everything." I felt sick. Anna finally looked up at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "How long?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. Finally, I whispered, "Months." She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "Months. All that time I thought I was going crazy, that I was imagining things. But it was real. You were with her." "I'm sorry," I said, the words hollow even to my own ears.
Sorry.
Her voice broke. "You don't get to say sorry. You destroyed us. Do you even understand that?" I moved closer, reaching out, but she pushed me back. Don't touch me." Silence fell, broken only by the storm outside. Finally, she whispered, "Do you love her?" The question hung in the air, suffocating. My mind screamed for me to say no, to tell her she was the only one, to beg for forgiveness. But the truth clawed its way out. "I don't know," I said. Her face crumpled, as if those 3 words hurt more than any confession. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Then there's nothing left to say. She walked past me, up the stairs, leaving me alone in the wreckage of our marriage. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the dining table, staring at the empty glass she had left behind, the storm raging outside and inside me. I had lost her, maybe forever. The next day, I went to see Julia. When she opened the door, I must have looked like a ghost. She didn't ask questions, just pulled me inside, her arms wrapping around me. "She knows," I whispered into her hair. Julia held me tightly, her voice calm but firm. "Then it's done. You don't have to live in the shadows anymore. We can be together now." But instead of relief, I felt a strange hollowness. Because while Julia held me, all I could think about was Anna's face. The way she looked at me when I told her I don't know. The triangle had collapsed, but in the ruins, there was no victory, only loss. After the night Anna confronted me, nothing was ever the same. She didn't scream, she didn't throw my things out into the street. In some ways, her quietness was worse than rage. She moved through the house like a ghost, speaking to me only when necessary, her eyes carefully avoiding mine. Within 2 weeks, she asked me to leave. Her voice was calm when she said it, as if she had rehearsed the words in her head 100 times. "You can stay at a hotel or with her. I don't care. But I can't look at you right now." I nodded. I didn't fight. I packed a bag that night and walked out of the life we had built together. Julia welcomed me into hers, at least at first. She tried to make it easy, new routines, shared breakfasts, whispered reassurances that everything would be worth it now that the secrecy was over. But the truth is, it didn't feel the way I thought it would. Freedom was supposed to feel liberating. Instead, it felt like walking on ashes. The thrill of stolen moments was gone. Without the danger, without the hiding, what we had left was fragile. Still passionate, yes, but passion alone isn't enough to carry the weight of destruction. And Anna, God, Anna was everywhere. I saw her in the coffee mug I accidentally packed with me, in the shirts she had ironed before I left, in the faint scent of her perfume that lingered on my clothes. Nights with Julia, I sometimes woke with her name on my lips, and the guilt was suffocating. Julia noticed. Of course she did. "You're not really here," she said one night, sitting across from me at her kitchen table. "You left her, but you didn't leave her. She's still in your head." I tried to deny it, but she shook her head. "You think I can't tell? Every time you go quiet, every time you look away, I know where your mind is. You're still living in two worlds, even now." Her words tore through me. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she was enough, that what we had was worth all the pain. But deep down, I knew she was right. The following months were chaos. Anna filed for separation. There were lawyers, endless paperwork, cold meetings where we divided a life into halves, who gets what, who owes what. Seeing her in those meetings was unbearable. She was always composed, polite, distant. But sometimes, just for a second, I caught a glimpse of the woman I had married. The warmth in her eyes, the softness in her smile, and it nearly broke me all over again. Once, after a particularly brutal session, I tried to talk to her. "Anna," I said quietly, as she gathered her papers, "I never wanted to hurt you." She paused, then looked at me with eyes that held no anger, only exhaustion. "But you did, and wanting or not wanting doesn't change anything." I never forgot those words. Julia stayed. She held on longer than I expected, maybe longer than she should have. But over time, the cracks between us widened. She wanted me to be fully hers, but I was still haunted by the life I had lost. Arguments grew frequent, bitter. She accused me of comparing her to Anna, of keeping one foot in the past. She wasn't wrong. The day she finally ended it, she didn't cry. She simply said, "I can't live in someone else's shadow anymore." And just like that, she was gone. Now, years later, I sit here writing this, trying to make sense of it all. What started as passion, as fire, ended in ruins. I lost Anna, I lost Julia, and in many ways I lost myself. Do I regret it? Yes and no. Regret is complicated. I regret the lies, the pain I caused, the way I shattered a woman who once trusted me completely. I regret the cowardice, the selfishness, but I don't regret feeling alive again, even for a moment. I don't regret remembering what it was like to burn with someone, even if that fire consumed us both. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what would have happened if I had chosen differently. If I had stayed faithful, fought harder for my marriage, found a way to reignite the flame with Anna. Or if I had truly committed to Julia, given her everything instead of holding back. But life doesn't give second chances. It only gives consequences. People say time heals. Maybe it does. Anna moved on. I heard she met someone, a man who treats her well, who makes her smile again. I tell myself that's good, that she deserves happiness after everything I put her through. As for me, I live alone now. My apartment is quiet. My evenings are long. I work, I sleep, I breathe. Sometimes I see Julia on social media, smiling with friends, living her own life without me. I never reach out. And yet, even now, I sometimes dream of both of them. Of Anna's gentle laugh, of Julia's fiery gaze. Two women who changed me in ways I can't undo. This is my confession. Not for forgiveness, not for pity. Just the truth of a man who loved, betrayed, and lost. And maybe, in the end, that's all love ever is. A story of what we had, what we destroyed, and what remains when the fire burns out.